Welcome to the Advanced Podcast. I'm Vikas Pota and I'm delighted to have you with us. Today, I'm honored to have yet another seasoned education leader whose commitment to the cause of quality education is shaping the lives of thousands of students around the world. My guest is Lil Bremermann Richard, Group Chief Executive Officer of Oxford International Education Group. Since taking the top job in 2019, Lil has steered the organization through rapid growth and the challenges of the pandemic. Under her leadership, Oxford International has moved beyond the UK, USA, and Canada, opening an international campus in Gurgaon, India, with the University of Southampton, and in Australia, partnering with the University of Notre Dame while acquiring universal higher education and universal English. Lil brings with her more than 20 years of senior experience across schools, apprenticeships, further and higher education. And earlier in her career, she directed international recruitment at Cavendish College, led global operations for South Thames College, and as an international director at BPP University, set up overseas study centers in 6 countries. She's a strong advocate for gender equality at work. Lil mentors women returning from maternity leave and supports women in leadership. Her efforts were recognized in 2024 when Oxford International was listed as by JP Morgan as one of Britain's top 10 women-powered companies. Please join me in welcoming Lil Bremermann Richard to the Advanced Podcast. So I'm excited that my friend Lil Bremermann Richard joins me on today's Advanced Podcast. Lil, welcome.
Thank you, Vikas. It's great to be with you this morning.
You look very nervous.
This is one of those things that it stretches me.
Yeah, I mean, Lil, you have, I've really enjoyed getting to know you, and your opinions and your dynamism is something that inspires. So I'm hoping in this podcast, what we can do is traverse actually quite a vast range of topics, ranging from, the world of higher education, the future of universities, how we prepare our young people. But where I want to start is a question which I know is quite deep and personal to you, which is around gender equality in particular. And when to look specifically at, this question about what, in the education sector, there's a heck of a lot of women that work in the education sector, but none of them actually lift to the top. So why is that? And what can we do about it?
Because yes, this is a topic that is very close to my heart, and one that I work really hard on all the time through my working career. I have my view is that there are 3 different aspects to this, and one of them is particularly difficult to break into. So one is obviously the working environment. And as you go up in your career, the demands from your role go beyond the 9 to 5 hours. It expands into personal potential stress and personal time because responsibilities mean that you are doing just more in and out of the job. And companies are working on this quite substantially around job share, flexibility of how many hours people are in the office or whether they can work from home. So I will give some credit to the corporate environment in terms of trying to improve that piece and also bringing in role models. So I think companies have been under pressure on this because they recognize the need. The second area is society. And the social pressures that women feel compelled to live up to, and again there has been development on that, but I think not enough, because generally people are putting pressure on companies. Create flex, create more opportunities. But I think in society, there should be a responsibility to encourage women to continue developing. And I find that is still lacking. And I have shared with you on a personal basis how I feel sometimes that the school of my 3 children are expecting me to do unrealistic things. But it's just, that's one example. And I know we have a broad education audience. So I think, hopefully they're going to take this into account. The third area is again a bit more personal. I think we women put quite a lot of pressure on ourselves because we are mothers. So by the time we reach a certain age, we obviously, a lot of us will feel like we want to have children, and maybe we are in a relationship, and that means that we struggle with that balance. We struggle with that balance of, I want a career and push through, and we understand the pressures of that, and being a great parent. And I'm not about in this podcast to start telling people how to be a great parent. I'm still challenged as to whether I'm doing a great job. But as a result, we feel that something is got to give. And at that point, it means that we may have reached by the age of 25, 30, some junior management positions. And at that point, we are making choices. And there, as a professional, as a CEO, trying to support women through that career progression, again, you could say we are limited because that personal choice of how it is achieved. How can we break through that? And I'm doing some of it is through mentoring, is through support, and being open to talking about this. So I welcome you asking me this question today, because I think we need to talk about the challenge. It's not like I haven't had it. But I have broken through. I've had numerous mentors. I'm sure we'll talk about networking, later in this conversation. And through my partnership with my husband, who, we talk about this, a lot, and he's been tremendously supportive. So, it is a complex topic, but one that is extremely important. As you say, we are still not winning. I'll be open in this space. I think we have a good 50-50 balance at Oxford International, but in my exec leadership team is still 60-40. And it's something that I consistently work on.
This isn't a comment on your age, so please don't take it like that. But for the younger women out there who are in the world of work, like you said, have just got their first job in the mid-20s, how is it they break through? What are there one or two things that you would say to them? Do these things because they will help you in your career.
Yes. I would say there are three pieces of advice that I would give them, and again, let's talk about those ladies in their early 20s that have invested a huge amount of effort and time in getting themselves into that early career stage. I think they need to focus on being prepared at all times. So being a continuous learner. So we haven't just done our degree, so we know it all. We need to be continuously learning and prepare, even on the small things, prepare for your day. And then be present and be excellent at your role. Don't aim for average, aim for excellence. And then effectively persevere. Turn up every morning, full of energy, aiming to succeed. You are going to fail. I still fail on a regular basis, but be optimistic about it. Take that as a learning, and keep moving forward. Be open-minded. Things change, and there are also new ideas. So be open for evolution and development.
And you talked a little bit about networking. Do you want to speak about what that's contributed towards your progress?
I would say, because I certainly wouldn't be here today without networking. I take, and I will give, I always like to give credit to you because you are very supportive on that. But I'll give a lot of credit to my mom. I found that if we go back 50 years and no mobile phones, she used to be on calls, and she used to have her coffees after work with different people in her industry, sharing ideas. The reality is networking should be put alongside reading. Because you can obviously read books, but hearing experiences from other people and discussing those experiences and those ideas means that you are learning. But a key ingredient of networking, in my view, is giving. So you cannot take networking as something that you do in order to just learn and take and just know more people, but it's about giving. So share your experiences, no matter how small they feel they may be. And also, your knowledge in general, the people you know, think carefully. I'll draw back to the point I made earlier about my 3 key pieces of advice about being present. So listen carefully and see how can you add value. And those people will come back to you. Similarly, you'll go back to them as something becomes relevant. So yes, I cannot stress enough the importance of it.
Lil, forgive me, and I know a little bit about your story, so I'm going to prod a little bit more, which is around and maybe I'm asking too much, which is, and you can tell me to buzz off and move on. But I think it's often useful to get, I know you will. It's often useful to give an example of where things haven't gone right for you. When you think it comes down to your gender that's being picked on as a way of actually halting your progress. Do you want to anonymize that experience, but share a little bit about the tough times you have faced?
So I would say, and please, because just also guide me as to where what you're looking. I have 2 areas to share around, challenging situations. If I go back to, investment, and, as you are trying to grow in your career or grow your business, I have been challenged by being in numerous rooms with quite, I would say, aggressive or, overly confident male. And you will only find, generally you'll find 99% men in the investment sector. And I think what would happen to me is not necessarily something that they do. I think they're just being them, and this is the environment they're in. It's more a little bit my imposter syndrome, who I imagine as a little girl here on my shoulder saying, I don't think they're listening to you, Lil. Because often it seems like they aren't, but it's just a technique. So I've had to train myself to ignore actually my own gender and not move from that room as I feel I have been listened. And if anything, I'm very direct, and because you commented on it, I go, please, I need you to stop. I need you to stop and listen to me. And potentially even I tell them to paraphrase. Please paraphrase what you think you heard me say. So I think that would be it. And it hasn't been easy because it's taken me potentially a lot more meetings than some of my counterparts, males. I would say I've had another tough time in my career. I would say I made quite a mistake, going into Germany without sufficiently networking in advance of it. So again, going back to the relevance and importance of networking, I did all of my homework with tax advisors, with legal advisors, with universities I wanted to partner with. I forgot expert meetings with networking, just talking to people that are operating in Germany. So I entered the wrong city in the wrong part of Germany with a product. Within 18 months, I had to come out of it. Because it just was never going to work. In my latest experience going into India with the University of Southampton, I think we spent 60% of our effort on expert discussions. I believe it has been a success now. We have the first cohort. So from now on, it won't be easy, but it will be business as usual, hardcore competition in the higher ed sector in India. But I learned my lesson. So I have more experiences like this to share.
I mean, it's a great segue that we make into a subject that I know that you're very passionate about talking about in particular, and one that I'm very interested in, which is the future of higher education. And as we segue into this, the question that I really want to ask is around, is it really worth it? Is higher education, does it still promise you, the earth, as it were, after investing so many financial resources into getting a degree or a qualification. Is today's world of work changing so much that actually universities have been rendered pointless? Is the question I want to ask you.
Because I am, when people ask me what keeps you awake at night, that is the question. And, I am in higher education. Oxford International is in higher education. I'm very passionate about it. I need to take, if the audience doesn't mind, a step back and let's just take a minute to think about students and how students are changing. I have kids. They are children of Amazon, Google, and they want things fast. They want things seamless. And they expect a huge amount from everyone they interact in. And I would give some credit this moment to K-12. K-12 is very advanced and agile in the utilization of AI in the classroom, as well as tools for students to learn to use. The economic situation of the world is also changed. Post-COVID, is about trade-offs globally. The geopolitical environment is also taken a 180-degree change. It's much less about globalization and more about protectionism. And then if we go into the point you were making, sorry, I've taken us backwards on this conversation, is the Industrial Revolution. I was in an executive meeting last week, and someone in my team said, but we've done this before. We've done this 3 or 4 times before. So I said, oh, that's a really good point. Let's look online. The time that it took us to go through the industrial revolutions. So the first one was 80 years. Of course, as humanity, we were able to adjust to that change. The second one, it took 50 years, so it shortened. Today, in this decade, every 4 years, we have 10,000 times better AI performance every 4 years, which the prediction now is that by 2027, AI will be more powerful than the top expert in any subject. So what does that mean about what we need graduates to do? But then the point is, the role of higher education needs to change and how they behave. So again, let's say, what do we think? What is higher education? What do we think of when we think of a university? We think about 3 things. Generally, we think about knowledge. We think about prestige. And we think about this organization with a very strict governance that often considers very thoroughly change before they make it. So is it relevant? Now, not everyone is becoming irrelevant and industry needs the higher ed sector to get these new generations ready. So it is relevant. It is important. It is essential, but it is absolutely essential that higher education moves with agility. There are some really good cases. Vikas, if you don't mind, I would like to name 3 organizations that are worth naming, but because I think as part of networking, we need to share. One is Arden University. It's become really relevant about students, about technology, about program, and is very close to industry. IU in Germany, cutting edge AI technology in the way they teach and support students. And 3, Universidad Europea. These are my 3 big examples, and I personally am constantly tracking. The state sector, whether it's in the US, in the UK, in Australia, in Europe, they are taking very long. And I think it is essential that they move forward, being agile, closer to students, but extremely close to industry. Because, I have as many conversations in higher ed as I have with employers. And they are saying, we need less young people because AI is doing the job. But we need the experienced people. So how do we move the young people from where they are now to being able to manage, to lead? And that answer needs to come through higher ed and other tertiary providers. I am very optimistic, you know me, and I'm working in higher ed. So we are at Oxford International working through this with employers. We've been doing quite a lot in India, but I am concerned that there is still a big group of universities that are more focused about today's financial situation than they are about the change that they need to make in terms of serving that transition at the pace that they need to do it.
Yeah, we have a mutual friend who accused me of looking at this from a first world basis, in the sense of like this question about whether university is relevant as being seen through the prism of the rich world. And they were talking about how in emerging markets or other countries which are not typically in Western Europe or North America, the only fair route to actually get a fantastic job is by getting a degree. Does that hold true in your perspective?
I thought like that before, but as I've entered India, that is moving extremely fast and working with employers like HSBC that are reducing the number of graduates that they are hiring because they are utilizing AI in India. I think that you are right, that your friend is also right, that we need to do both. I think we need to. Obviously, there are all of these children in these emerging economies. There are more children in emerging economies than the rich world. You're right. The population of Nigeria or India under the age of 25 is greater than the elder. So they do need to come out of schools and go into university. I think the question is not whether they shouldn't go to university to get a great job. Is the challenge that I am posing is what we are teaching at university. We need to be very careful because all of those, as you said, from poorer countries going into university, they need to come out with something useful. And technology in Nigeria, the access to technology in Nigeria, in India, and Indonesia is expanding extremely fast. It's becoming commoditized. People have a phone. People have computers. And I don't think it's good enough to put a student through a degree and say, because it's in a poorer country, I'm going to teach them the old content in the old way and they are going to have a better job. I don't think so.
Lil, as you know, I work in the K-12 sector of primary and secondary education. And when you have parents asking teachers or school leaders this question about how do you prepare their children for the world, what is your answer to that, given all the change that you talked about that is happening, in wider society and in the market, as it were? How do you take a young child and prepare them for that world when we don't know what we're headed into?
My view on this is that we need to focus on the strengths of humanity and being a human. So developing emotional intelligence and social skills. I think more recently we have been leaving that behind. And I think the ability to relate to others, work as a team, problem solving, being creative and imaginative will play a very strong role. The other one is about being a continuous learner. I am very optimistic. I know I've been sharing some of my worries, but I'm sharing them because I want to ignite the community to be thoughtful and to actually take pace. Not just technology take pace, but the rest of us take pace to create an environment that is conducive of taking advantage of this technology and making it good. So being a continuous learner. And again, also about being optimistic, having a mindset that we are fantastic. We have created AI. We are developing AI. So what else can we do? I know that it's going to be, I am certain it's going to be okay. every day we are going to wake up and we are going to do something fantastic. We need to encourage children and help them develop with that mindset. And when it's not okay, that it will be okay. That is not something that AI will do for us. So I think, and again, embracing. I'm sorry that we keep commenting and it seems like a threat. I think it's about embracing that change and helping kids feel that way. I would say again, because that K-12 needs to continue, but it is, they are doing a very good job of that. I suppose, because to some degree, schools do move fast, unethically. I think that's a point that I missed, that I think is very important about thinking about the ethics behind all that is being developed. But again, going back to K-12, I think they're doing very good. They are faster. I think higher education runs higher risks of failing this transition.
Lil, you talked a little bit about the power of going to university. The question really is around, again, I ask this question because it's coming up more and more. When I went to university, the government paid me to go to university. We got university grants. The government, the state funded it. Today, when you talk about developing life skills, and when you talk about being the humanistic side of it, is, when you think about the consumer, the parent, having to contribute maybe 50, 60, 70,000 pounds per year towards the little Johnny going to university and becoming more human. Is that the best use of money?
Because I have to say yes to that. And I will say, I would like the audience to know, as a parent whose son is looking at university, I still believe that university is the right place. Is it the right place for everyone? No. There are certain skills and certain roles that are better than in a college, FE college, further education college. Certain type of roles are better through apprenticeships, but there are certain things that university is the right place. And we have to remember that age between 18 to 22, 23, these kids aren't quite ready for the world of work. Is again, what skills we are giving them, how we are helping them to interact and being more human. The question. So yes, I do believe the answer is yes. I think what we need to always remember is that when you went to university only a few years ago, because when the government paid for you to go, the world was a very different place. And going to university was only for some. And you needed to be, to some degree, it was a privilege for you to go to university. Today, kids of 18 years old have a lot more choice. I only named 2 or 3 before we start, before I made my final comment. There weren't that many choices when you went to university, including companies providing their own courses. So I think the shift is now universities need to be more proactive, and also things are changing faster. So when kids are looking at university, they need to be more discerning about where they go, what they are going to study, and what the return on investment is going to be.
My next question, when you think of it from a parent or a student perspective, is, universities have cultivated this immense capability in signaling, like a lighthouse almost, like signaling that, a student that has gone through the hallways of an Oxford or Cambridge or an Ivy League in America is the surest way of success in life. Do you have a comment on that?
I believe that that is starting to lose some of its shine. Saying that it is true that there are that those universities do attract some of our greatest talent globally, and I don't think we should undermine the amount of effort and commitment that the kids that got into those universities put ahead of going in. and the signal that it sends about the graduate that you are attracting if they have gone to those universities. Because you have to remember that those kids prior, if we take the UK example, is a different system in the US or in other countries, but that kid probably done 10 plus GCSEs. And some of them come from quite deprived backgrounds. So they've had to put all of that work individually. Then they've gone and selected subjects and to do A levels or IB, and they have put a tremendous amount of commitment. So again, talking about soft skills, when you have a graduate from some of these very prestigious universities, you are looking at someone that prior to the degree probably put another 10 years of hard work. So what does it tell about their resilience, their commitment, and the amount of knowledge and talent that they're bringing to the table? So that does not undermine someone that has gone and done an amazing, very forward-looking qualification in another university that maybe is less, how can you use some words about this, less grandiose as Oxford or Cambridge or Harvard or Yale, but they have gone and done something very creative, very forward-thinking. Is not less; it's just different, and I think that's what we need to think about.
And I wonder if the same stands true, given that you're a pioneer in taking a UK university, a Russell Group university, to India as a brand, and actually developing and delivering courses and programs and degrees in India itself. What is your observation about the value of an education in those kinds of places?
Because what a great question. Thank you so much for asking it. Because people ask me, what was my experience, or what was hard and what was easy. Pretty much everything is quite hard about taking a university to another country. But that is the most challenging part. Taking that experience and making sure that what students are going to get in India is equivalent to what they would get in University of Southampton, at Southampton. So it has to be equal value. And as a result, there needs to be a lot of effort in understanding what's the essence of what a student would get in the central original campus in terms of discussion, networking, professors, exposure to whatever it is, research, employers. So I would ask my colleagues and counterparts thinking about doing the same or doing it at scale, that there is a huge amount of responsibility in making sure that happens in the overseas campus. We have done it, and you need two parties to it. You need the university to be committed to outlining and unpicking what is all the detail around that experience, and the operating partner to deliver it to the standard. Hence, for example, us as a company, we've chosen to do one of these a year because it takes a huge amount of effort and time.
And when you think about transnational education, and I see a lot of people talking about that, do you think there's an opportunity for universities to expand on their transnational offer?
Yes. And I think, when we were talking about students earlier and the current environment in higher education, I made a comment around geopolitical environment, but also economic. I think it's actually essential that we bring some of these very valuable universities and university experiences to the source markets where students are, as we named, Nigeria, India, the Middle East, Indonesia, because of the size of the young population. So I think it is essential that this happens. Now, if we park that for a second and say there are two or three things that need to happen. One is there needs to be an understanding that is a long-term investment that will provide returns to universities in the long term, but in the short term is investment. Because again, we are talking about education. And remember, you were asking me, are students going to get the same? Is this as valuable? The answer is it has to be. So there needs to be a tremendous amount of care and curation in getting that same experience for students in those markets. So if say investment, care, and then it is a different type of students. So it's challenging. It's the admissions process in India for us has been very different than it would be in the UK. In the UK, students are applying more than a year ahead of going to university. So they're thinking about it 2 years in advance. In India, it's happening now. But that's okay. That's how the market is. How students expect to have support is different. The regulatory environment is different. So for me, exciting. For my team, development opportunity. What I worry in terms of this trend of T&E, my only flag is people think is fast and is volume, and I think it needs to be carefully curated if we want to avoid embarrassment. Because the students are smart and parents are very committed to their kids' development. So they want to see quality.
As a committed globalist myself, and the thing that I really love hearing from folks like you who are working globally is what is it that we can learn in the UK or in the Western Europe or North American hemisphere from places like India, places like Indonesia, Philippines, China in our education system. So what do you see that's working over there that we ought to pay a lot more attention to?
There is so much to learn. My biggest takeaway from India that we learned very fast was that parents and students' first commitment was on reassurance, guarantees of return on investment. And they didn't even want to hear it from us as the provider. They wanted to hear it from employers, that what their kid was going to study was going to give them returns. I think in the UK, Canada, US, where we operate, that question gets asked very late and is very little importance. We kind of complain afterwards, but it's too late. We've done it, right? And please take this as a very serious point, because we had to move very fast at working with employers. Otherwise, we were not going to have any students this September. None. Second, that we took away was the requirement for workshops and experiencing the university in advance. I think that is something, we do open days in the UK. They are very orchestrated type environments. In India, we were challenged substantially on who was going to be teaching, how they were going to be teaching, and so forth. I think those were my two biggest takeaways from our India experience. We are, as a company, looking at delivering in Southeast Asia, Middle East, and Africa now. And we are going with huge humility. And I would say then that is the third learning, humility. I think in higher education, we think we know. Yes, and because it's a British education or because it's an American university or what, we come with the knowledge and we are going to tell the market. I think humility is a huge piece, and there is a vast amount of respect for local universities in India, but also in other countries around the globe. And I think we need to learn from them. So networking within local, private and state universities in that market is essential.
Lil, you have given us a tour de force through your career and a perspective on the future of higher education. Just to recap from my perspective, you talked about, for example, this podcast is focused on high performance and trying to make sure that people understand how you drive high performance. And you talked about three things. One was be prepared with information and the courage to use that information. The second was, I think you talked about being present in the moment. And the third is your life story, is about perseverance, is the way I think about it. Never giving up, but have an open mind for change and evolution. Also, when I recap on our conversation today, I think about things like knowing you a little bit better than most people that will listen to this. You know, your ability to keep showing up and being present and being in the game, being part of the conversation is something to be admired. And that is underscored with your interest, and the way you presented it to young people in particular is the power of networking. And so I'm really pleased to have had this conversation with you. There's lots of conversation and questions that around higher education that we still have. But you provided a great explanation in terms of helped us take a step back and then look forward as to what's possible with the higher education and what the world we're entering is on the basis of your experience through all of your career, actually. So Lil, thank you so much for taking part in this interview. Is there a piece of advice as a conclusion that you'd like to share with everyone that you've been given that has been steadfast and actually stood right next to you throughout your career that everyone can benefit from?
Thank you for giving me this opportunity, Vikas, to share it, because it's extremely important and is very close to my heart on a daily basis. And is not to stress or worry about things or actions that I cannot control, but focus my energy on my response to any of the scenarios that may come up. For someone like me that is persevering and action-driven, thinking about what am I going to do in the different options rather than worry about what I cannot influence has been tremendous. And I encourage people to take that approach. But thank you so much, Vikas, for giving me the opportunity to join this. As you know, is an area that, doing a podcast or being recorded is something that makes me particularly nervous, but I've really enjoyed the conversation. I love to stretch myself, and I hope I've been helpful to others.
You're very kind, and we look forward to the next opportunity. Thank you so much, Lil.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye-bye.
What I can say is that was a deeply inspiring conversation. Lil has always, hit the spot when it comes to that inspiration quotient. And I want to thank her for sharing her journey and wisdom with us. Out of the many brilliant ideas shared by Lil, these are my key takeaways from the conversation. Firstly, be prepared. Gather the facts and summon the courage to use them. The second, be present. Give your full attention to the moment in front of you. And the third is around perseverance. Keep moving, but stay open to change as you grow. If Lil's word gave you something to ponder, please hit the subscribe button on whichever platform you get your podcast on and pass this episode to a friend who cares about education. It helps if more voices join this conversation. Thank you for being here, and I look forward to our next conversation on the Advanced Podcast.